right, now we're recording.
Psych. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fuel Stop Chats. Tonight, James and I are going to have a special guest with us, Mr. Todd Ketterman. We've known for years and ride with a lot, but tonight we're going to explore a side of Todd that we don't normally get to talk about, and that is how you got started with the black motorcycles.
Yeah, you're scaring me here a little bit, Chris, but so the question is, how did I get started with the black motorcycles? Well, I mean, I think like you guys, I mean, I was thinking about this. I mean, first of all, I remember, my dad, having a little mini bike, this little red, small little pull start. I don't even know what the model was. It was weird.
Briggs and Stratton.
Yeah, I think he bought it in
Sears,
right? And I mean, I was one of these kids that it wasn't even about. I was just drawn to two wheels and a motor. I mean, it was just like, if I heard it, if I smelled it, if I saw it, it was just. And I remember I was probably 7. And, my dad would start it up. I couldn't even start it. And I would just ride it until it ran out of gas, and it was the front lawn. It was just the front lawn. And I would just do circles. And so I was always interested in motorcycles. I mean, it was one of those things that even if I saw someone riding it, I was running, hey, take me for a ride. So the love of motorcycles has always been there for me. I've had on and offs, where I've owned one and I didn't own one and, borrowed at friends or something, but
I think you own one or two now.
Yeah, a few. But yeah, so I was always into them. And as I got older, I never really wrenched on a motorcycle. I never took one apart, never, you had them. In fact, it wasn't until probably 2012, 13 timeframe where I really got serious about and the whole DIY thing started. The whole idea of wrenching on your own bike, buying your parts. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, Brooklyn, New York, and I wanted to buy a motorcycle. I didn't have one. I ended up buying a DR 650. But what happened was I had no place to store it. So it was park it on the street, which I wasn't going to do. So I started calling around and there were a couple garages that would allow you to do this community. You pay $200, you go in, you get a slip, you get power, plug a tender in, the whole thing, and 24 access in and out. Finally found this place, Vax Moto, owned by Justin Walters up in Brooklyn. Great place. Went in and he's like, man, I got one space left. You can have it, but you got to buy it now. I didn't even have the motorcycle. So I gave him a credit card and said, I'm in. And I'll tell you, it probably took me a month or two before I had the motorcycle, but I would go over there and hang in it. You'd smell it. You just walk in and the oil and the fuel and the nice thing about that space, it was a community space. So you had a place to rent, you had a pool table, you had just thick couches. And I mean, it was more than what I could have ever asked for. So finally picked up the bike, pulled it in, parked it. And I was one of these guys that everything had to be perfect, clean, shiny. Don't give me a hard time on that. Everything had to be just kind of clean. That's me. And there was this guy in there, this Australian nut job of a guy. I mean, he was Mad Max to the hilt. I mean, covered in tats, wearing Dickies, a black shirt, bald, and you always saw him with a welding helmet. Always had a welding helmet.
Wait a minute now, on. Black shirt, bald guy. Come on.
Oh yeah, black. I mean, but I was like,
Where's your neck tattoos there?
He had them, but he had this energy. And I would walk in and he would make fun of me. He'd be like, "Oh, so where the F are you going? What are you doing?" Everything was the C word. It's from Australia. I think it was from New Zealand. It's Kiwi. But he would rough me up every time I came in and I pulled out my nice shiny new DR 650 and go for a ride. And he was always over there banging on his motorcycle. And I'd laugh at him and wave and be like, "Hey, when you get that thing running, let me know. We'll go for a ride. So I'd go over and see him, and he was every day just banging on that thing and welding and just banging around. I had no clue what he was doing. And
he might not have either.
So spring came along, and I'm out riding my bike, and I'd come in and I'd say, hey, when you get that thing running, let me know. We'll go for a ride. So sure enough, I come in one day, and he's got that thing, ready to roll. And I mean, he just kick starting it and blowing smoke and all making all kinds. And I'm just laughing my butt off at him. I'm like, man, that thing is just a hunk of junk. We rode all the way up to Poughkeepsie. We went to the Indian Museum up there. They had the Wall of Death going and all that stuff. And we had a good old time, came back, stopped and got some food. And just that he and I riding, and I'm on my DR and he's putzing back there like Motorcycle Diaries. And I'm just laughing at him the whole time. And I mean, he was bent over on that thing. What he built was a cafe racer, a CB750, single overhead cam, 1978. It's the best motorcycle I still think to this day, to cafe. It's a great bike. So anyway, we get back, he parks the thing. He's just torn up from riding, bugs in his face. He's had his little goggles on the whole time, his little helmet. I get off, I'm all nice and clean, in my DR 650, park it. Well, I came over one day, and he was, his bike was sitting out front, and I had to go pick something up. And I didn't want to take my bike out and all that. And so I said to him, I go, hey, Russ, I go, let me take your bike up to, auto parts. I got to pick something up. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. Flip the switch. I mean, no key, no nothing. Just flip the switch, give it a kick, go. And threw me his gloves full of grease, and threw me his little helmet and, the whole thing, and jumped on that thing. And I'm sitting on it. I'm literally sitting on this cafe on it. And I'm like, wow, all right, this is kind of cool, and kick started.
Feels good, doesn't it?
And I'm like, this is really fucking cool, really cool. Next thing you know, I'm laying over on it, my chest almost on the gas tank, and this thing had, thin tires on it, the Firestone Deluxe, just, and I'll tell you what, man, I took off on that thing, and that grumbling and that sound, and something went through me. I mean, it was like a spirit just went through me. It was like, it was odd. And I'm riding that bike, and everybody's looking and giving me the peace sign and the thumbs up. And I mean, I should have been Snoopy on his doghouse, I mean, I mean, I was a changed man at that point. I came back and went, I want one. I want to build one. Teach me. Well, that's
very strange. Cause I mean, you're no fan of vanity by any means.
Well, I'll tell you, that changed everything. That changed everything for me. And Russ and I, to make a long story longer, he said, we've got a project bike in the back. Talked to Justin. He said, well, this is what I got. I got a CB, a 1980 CB750 in the back. I think it runs, the engine runs. I can't prove it to you, but I'll sell it to you for $1,000, and you don't have to pay me until the thing's built and it's running. And I went, I'm in, I'm sold.
That's a deal there. I'm
sold. So, and they said you'd have a project bike. And I said, I don't need a project bike. I'll never own more than one. I don't need more than one bike. So, I mean, every night I was over there learning to cut and grind. The first thing, I mean, Russ was like Miyagi, wax on, wax off. I came over. I had never put a bike on a lift before. Put it up on the lift, jacked that thing up. He handed me the grinder, and he took a Sharpie and he's cut this, cut that, cut this, cut that. And I'm on there just doing it all wrong, doing everything wrong, grinding too hard, going through the metal. He's yelling at me, F this, you see that, blah, blah, and I mean, but the dedication that I had going every single night after work, every night I was there, he was there, covered, and I'd come home and just wash, do it the next night. And I'll tell you what, we were getting close to these bikes being built, and people started gathering, because most of the guys that came into the shop would park their bike and you plug it onto the Tinder. And then they would look at Russ and I and say, what are you guys doing? And now I'm laughing at them going, oh, what, you're going to go jump on your pretty little bike and take a ride? So, you know, Russ and I started building this kind of spirit there at the shop, and just every night there. Well, what happened was we, as most boys do, you know, my bike's faster than your bike. And so that started this, oh, really? Well, Russ is Kiwi. And if you know anything about Kiwis, they love to take their bikes to Bonneville. If you know the story, right?
Fastest Indian.
That's it. So Russ said, we got to go to Bonneville. That's the only place to see whose bike is faster than the other. Well, that turned into another, you know, pilgrimage that we did. We finished the bikes and we made the pilgrimage to Bonneville. We actually ended up taking 4 bikes to Bonneville because we built 2 more that we knew we wanted to go fast on. We actually did a Gixxer 1150. We both wanted to do over 200 on the salt, and we knew our bikes weren't going to do that. So Bonneville has a run what you brung category. You still have to go through scrutineering. You still have to do the whole thing. But we went out, took them, took a crew with us. Whole thing went out. So that again was another just big milestone. While we were going out there, or no, sorry, when I was coming off of the salt, I had worked with an organization. I sat on the board of an organization called Road Recovery, based out of New York City, that works with kids that struggle with addictions and things like that. And as a board member, you're always looking for ways to raise money and do different things. So I had said to the other guys there, hey, when I get done racing this motorcycle, we should auction it off and see if we could raise some money for the organization. And they said, that's a dumb idea. That's a dumb idea. Motorcycles and rock and roll, they just don't go together. So they had if you know the name, John Barbados, he was working with the organization. His flagship stores in New York City called where CBGB's was. And he was working with Road Recovery to let them host some music there. We did Peter Frampton at CBGB's and some others, and we bring the kids in and they'd rock out, you know, at CBGB's. So I said, well, why don't we do this? I could build a motorcycle. I could work with John. We could do some things to it to make it a little more sticky and auction it off. What do you guys think? And it's, well, write it up and we'll send it over to John. I had done that before I went to Bonneville. I'm coming off the salt of Bonneville. I'll never forget this. Got the U-Haul, got the bike. They're all blown up. Engines were salt shakers at that point. And I got a call from Barbados saying, hey, can you be in my office in 2 weeks and bring the bike? Well, I had a bike in the back that was a salt shaker. And if you know anything about salt and metal, just a bucket of rust. So I knew I had ahead of me to get this thing together. That turned into, and I kind of cut over a really important piece here. Russell and I had, I mean, to give you a little background on Russell, he is a professor. He's now got his PhD, but he was a professor of the architecture built space at the University of New South Wales in Australia. So he was in New York on a fellowship at NYU. So when we went on that ride, I learned all this about Russell. I only knew him as the crazy Australian or Kiwi in the shop, you know, always flirting out, and he tattoos himself and just a crazy, crazy dude. So, but when he told me what he did, we connected even more because I'm like, well, I'm kind of a professional too, you know, but I like to get greasy and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, we had decided at some point to start this company called the Black Motorcycles. It was really the brainchild of Russell. He had always wanted to do something like that. Our logo is a black square. He's an artist. He does a lot of fabrication and a lot of things. And there's a whole story about the black square. And I'll let you do some research on it, but just Google black square and kind of go learn about what that means. But there's a really famous artist at the turn of the century that painted a painting, and it was a black square. And over the years, over 100 and so many years, they started uncovering what's under the black square. And the idea, well, did he paint over something, or was the black square the perfection of the imperfection? So that's kind of where we started the black motorcycles at. And if you look at some of our logos and stuff, they do say New York, Sydney. So, so when got the call from John, they said, let's meet. It was all under the whole black motorcycles at that part. We had incorporated, start our website, our Instagram, all of that type of stuff, and put it together. So went and met with John. Again, make a long story short, we met with his design team. He said, yes, let's do it. I actually bought another CB750 that actually, no, I bought a CB900 that I wanted him to see what the before and after looked like, to really give him an idea of what it is we did. So I brought 2 motorcycles to his 12th floor office, wheeled them in the freight elevator. Guys are looking at me like, you got to be kidding me. Where are you going with these motorcycles? Took them upstairs. He gave us 30 minutes, which turned into an hour and a half. He was blown away with the whole thing and the opportunity to do it. So we had a ball. I mean, we just had a blast working with him and his design team and all that type of stuff. And we ended up auctioning off that motorcycle, the most expensive CB750 to date. It should be in the Guinness Book of World Records, because most people would go, you sold it for what? But we had a guy out of Beverly Hills that it was a silent auction. We used a company that did a silent auction, and he bought it from his Learjet, and then I delivered it to Beverly Hills to him. And,
how much? We got to know how much now.
It was around $50K.
That's a good donation for a great cause.
A nice donation.
Yeah.
And by the way, just for the listeners out there that aren't familiar with Kazimir Malevich and his artwork, the black square, including the auction add-on price, right? They always get a cut, but it auctioned for 60 million.
Yeah.
The black square.
That's right.
It's the most expensive Russian painting ever auctioned. So there you go.
Right.
The inspiration.
And the whole yeah, that's it. Thanks for looking that up. And you're right. And when you really think about it, and I had to learn this, believe it or not, guys, I am way too picky about the things I do. And I mean, you can see my floor and the stuff. I am so Russell is just the opposite. Russell is let everything, when we talked about taking the bike to John, he was like, let it rust, take it in, salt shaker. You know, that's the whole essence of who we are and what we do. And I was like, no way. Like, this thing's got to shine and sparkle, and I'm going to take it back and rebuild it. We had our differences, which is good. It was healthy conflict. But as you can see, believe it or not, the bikes that you see here have a lot of Russell in them. There's a lot of imperfection here. I could show you welds and all sorts of stuff on these bikes that, you know, just I try to do my best of letting things be the way they are. And I think all of us can learn a lot from that. I know I have, you know, on the whole, if you want to pick up something and wrench and take something off and put something on, and, you know, let it be yours, let your personality come through in it. And don't ever let anybody tell you that it's not right. I mean, that's what I learned. So
you guys, the description that you gave of you and Russ reminds me of some other guys.
That's it. I will send you guys some pictures. So if you do any editing of this, I'll give you a couple pictures of Russ and I on the salt, and it'll make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, it'd be great. So I totally appreciate, and I know that you've done some stuff with road recovery that we've, you know, the company has participated in and stuff, and just a phenomenal cause to help, you know, kids on the road to recovery. And I think that, you know, to be able to tie the motorcycle build, the auction, the whole experience together, it must have been a very gratifying experience for you guys.
It really was. I mean, I've taken motorcycles over to there, you know, when we could meet in person. I've taken motorcycles over, and the kids jump on these motorcycles and they're just blown away that an adult, that somebody would bring them something and let them start it or sit on it or rev the engine. It really has, you know, been very impactful for them. And so we've got some other things going on now. We've got, some different lines. We're doing a moto boot and stuff. I know we've talked about that. We're going to do some other gear. I'm wearing a shirt right now, a hat. We've got different things that we're doing, but all the proceeds from that, a portion of the proceeds, go to road recovery. So as we get more mature in our offering and our product, there will be a note in everything that we send out with a thank you, personal thank you, saying, thanks for helping, with, these children. So,
Yeah.
and you could,
You were talking about, the kids on the bikes. There's something about children and motorcycles that they just connect to it. And maybe it's because it's sort of like an unknown or a forbidden fruit, but it's like when we were up in West Virginia, it was me, Ty, and Chris. There was this young couple, and they had, was it two kids or three kids? I can't remember. But
Two.
the youngest one had to be 2-3 years old, and they couldn't get him to go to sleep. He was just crying and just not a happy baby. And they
We were
actually
at the
came over.
campground.
Yeah, we were in campground, and
We're getting ready to set up. Yeah, we're getting ready to get the
we were
fire
sitting by the
started.
campfire, smoking cigars, drinking bourbon, having a good time. And the guy just came over. He started talking to us. He had, done some adventure riding. And he's like, "Do you mind if I put my kid on your motorcycle? Because it," and Chris was like, "Yeah, put him up there." And he got up there and just silence.
Yeah.
He wasn't fidgety. He wasn't crying. It was something that connected with that child at that young of an age that it soothed him. It was
My
incredible to watch.
The same way.
Yeah.
My grandson's the same way. It's incredible. He's 3 now, so it's full on talking and the whole 9 yards. But I can remember when he was coming over here just after he started walking, and the garage door was open. He saw tractor, 4-wheeler, motorcycles, and now even at 3, and he can fully express himself with words. I got to sit on everything before I leave. And
yeah,
Grandpa,
I'll tell you what, it's so true. Any place that I've ever been, and it's exciting when the kids want to come up and
just lights them up.
Look at them. I was riding the other day. I was on the GS and I was doing something, ran an errand, and I was going through a parking lot, and this mother was, little tyke, must have been 3, maybe 4, probably 4. And as he came around the car, I kind of went by them, and the mother went, "Wow, you see that? Wow, look at that." And there's just something that, these kids they light up. They're just so excited when they see a motorcycle. And
you weren't with us at the Grand Canyon, were you?
No.
James we were at the Grand Canyon. We backed up to this parking spot, and he had a drone, and he was going to do some drone footage with, kind of look at the bikes and then pop up over so you could see the Grand Canyon behind the bikes. And this Korean family came walking over, and I think the little one was 5-6 years old.
Forgot all about that.
The only person in that group, and there was a few families of Koreans. The only person that could speak English was the little girl. And she said, they're admiring the bikes, looking at the bikes. "Do you guys care?" "No, I don't care." And I said, "Do you want to sit on one?" And she turns around in Korean, must have asked her parents, got the head nod. We set her up on the bike, and it was photo op for like 30 minutes. We're like, "Guys, we're getting to the point now where TikTok, we got to roll, but what do you say? These people had so much fun sitting, at, the stereotypical Americans, Harleys, the jackets, but the kids just light up on that stuff. And think about it. You were just talking about when you were a kid, pull starting that old Sears, mini bike. We were the same way. I got into wrenching on bikes because I was poor.
Right.
I'm just being honest. I grew up on a farm, out in the Midwest, and you couldn't take your bike to the shop and get it worked on.
Mm-hmm.
If the carburetor got gummed up, you took it apart, rejetted it, and put it back together,
Yeah.
And now it's a time thing. I've got an old R75 that I'll slowly polish up, and I'll putz around over the winter and do, but when I want to go, I don't want to mess around. I just want to get on my bike and go.
Mhm.
And so there's service work that goes on there, but then there's the other bike that's sitting there getting played with, worked on. Same thing with the tractor. I love going out there, changing the hydraulic fluid, changing oil. I grew up on a farm. It's in me.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I know
hey,
you
Todd.
spent a lot of time on a farm, Todd. So
Yeah.
Todd, slide to the side a little bit.
Which way?
Slide to your right. Oh, see there? Wrenching on a bike. You got the whole back end taken apart.
now, is this the one you're putting the oversized rear tire on?
Yeah, so you can see it right there. Yeah, so changing it out, just doing, and this again, this is most people look at this particular bike and they think it's an oldie. I've had people tell, oh yeah, that thing's from the, people that know their Harleys don't say it, but they're already, that thing's, from the 60s or 70s or something. This is a 2007 Sportster Custom. It's got an electronic ignition on it. Electronic fuel ignition. This thing, I tear it up, I put a Motor Goodsey light on it. That's back from Rebel Without a Cause. Those big lights, everybody, puts the little small lights on it. I had a Goodsey light laying around, I put some shotgun pipes on it. If you saw the other side of it, take the air intake off, put something different there. So
now you converted this to right side drive, right?
This took the belt off, put a chain on it. Yep. And it's a fun bike, to ride and light up. And this one over here you can't see. This one here is a Scrambler, 2014 Scrambler with about 900 miles on it. I don't think it's ever seen rain. But again, you look at it, it's probably got, close to about 10 grand in it on mods, and, fun to ride, fun to putz around on. And yeah, of course, you guys know the GS sitting over there. And so
I've had that GS in my garage for a while.
that's it. They start becoming like shoes. You have a different pair of shoes to wear at different times and different bikes to, ride around on. And so it's I'm going up to New York this weekend to bring 2 more back. So
What are you picking up in New York?
So I've got a Motor Goodsey, a Cal 2 that I've been working on for a while. I did this exact bike back about 6 years ago. Sold it, which I should have never done. That's the other thing, just be careful. But now I'm redoing it, the exact bike, so that I can have in my possession and never let it go again. And then a 1971 Victor, a Bsa Victor 250, which was kind of back in the Steve McQueen days.
Those BSAs aren't cheap anymore either.
Fully running. Can't say enough about 6th Street Cycles. Give a little shout out to those guys. They were phenomenal. Those guys were just down here in Daytona. They just raced at the vintage AMA flat track race, and they took a couple positions on that. So big shout out to them. So,
well, we need to wrap it up. We got about 30 seconds left. So the time went quick. Listen to Todd, but it's nice to actually put a name to the stories, because I mean, Chris and I talk mad shit about you, the fashionista that you are
all the time. That crazy Todd.
Yeah. No, we have some good times, man. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I hope we have a lot more for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, boys. Well, it's about that time, so I'm just gonna say, ride her out. Thanks for hopping on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Dave.
Ride her out, James.
Ride her out.